Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Titanic Talks. Today is Monday, April 26th, 2021. And wow, what a beautiful day it is today. Happy Monday, everyone. I had a wonderful weekend out in the country, and I got to spend time around a lot of animals. And that was wonderful. I received an email recently from a member of the audience who is visually impaired, and they had very kind words to say. And they like listening to these episodes. But they didn't know what visually was being communicated on the screen. And so I figured it might be a good idea for those with visual impairment to describe what this episode looks like for accessibility purposes. So we're here in my studio in front of a black backdrop, as always. All of these are in front of a plain black backdrop with one single light, a very soft light coming from one direction. And I'm wearing a Rolling Stones t-shirt with their classic logo of the open mouth lips with the tongue out, as well as a red handkerchief around my neck, a jacket, and a black Stetson hat. You know, one time I was in, this was the evening they announced. The rumor was that everything, at the time I was in Los Angeles, everything was going to be closing for the lockdown. There's a lot of confusion, I'm sure you remember, at that time. And I was wearing something similar to this, actually. I know I had my black Stetson hat on and my red handkerchief, tomato. And I was going to stock up on some food and some beverages. And there was a gentleman in front of me in line at the Ralph's on Ventura in the Valley, Studio City, right by Universal Studios Hollywood, the local grocery store there. And the gentleman in front of me, I believe, had 9 or 10 bottles of Patron in his cart. It was a lot, and kind of a big entourage of people. He appeared to be an artist, if I had to guess. And he looked cool, you know, and his friends looked cool. And I was next in line, and as he was ringing everything up, he kind of turned around to me and pointed at me and said, "I'll get his groceries too." And I was like, "Oh man, that's super nice of you, but you don't got to do that." And he said, "No, you stylin'." And I thought, "You are as well. Thank you." He goes, "No, you stylin'." He got the red on. And I realized I was wearing this here bandana. And I realized what he meant. And though I have no affiliation with any organizations, I have to say that it was a very kind gesture from that gentleman. And he insisted that he insisted to buy my groceries for me. And I think that was the only time in my life anything like that has ever happened. And so this is before anybody really knew. It's before the world changed, I guess you would say. So I shook his hand and said, "Hey, that was very kind, and thank you." And we went our separate ways. And I have no idea. I wish I knew who it was so I could maybe give them a shout out. But the memory will always be there. I felt like I made a friend, which I guess if someone, just decides to buy your groceries because they like how you're dressed, that's a quick way to become my friend. That's for sure. But I hope he's doing well wherever he is out there. Maybe still in California. And that was one of the last days I was in California. That night is the night I had some friends over. One of my friends worked in the food service industry as a bartender. And they said at midnight tonight, everything's closing and we don't know for how long. And it was long. That was an interesting time. And after spending so many years living in a city, it felt as though it was the right time. I was exhausted from all the traveling, and I kind of, from what I was hearing at that time, it was sounding like things were going to be shut down for a significant amount of time. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to go down south. And so that is what I did, and I've been loving it. Southern hospitality is such a real thing. People are very kind, very nice down here. And over the weekend, being able to take some time to really get out there in the country, miles and miles and miles of nothing but cows and open road. And if you've been watching these episodes, you know how much I enjoy the open road. Good time to listen to music. Maybe check out a new album. Maybe listen to an album that is near and dear to your heart, and hopefully, potentially learn something new or gain something new from a fresh listen. And sometimes, depending on the set and setting in which you're listening, you can get a new perspective. That's one of my favorite things about listening to a classic album, or an album that you consider classic, is sometimes, even if it's a song you've heard a million times, the circumstances in your life have changed in a way that maybe can make that music more relatable, lyrically or musically. I find it to be both ways as of late. I braved the line at Starbucks today. It's kind of becoming an in and out situation where there's going to be a line. That's kind of the brilliant thing here as opposed to other places that I've lived, big cities. Drive-throughs exist. And I think spending almost my entire adult life in a densely populated major metropolitan area, as someone who grew up in the suburbs of Michigan, everything had a drive-through, and that's a level of convenience that was not in my life for a very long time. And so I've been, the only time really living in LA, at least, that I would go to Starbucks is if I found myself in a Target. And Target has always been a bit of a wondrous place for me, because no matter where you are in the country or in the world, I believe I don't know if there's Target in Canada still. I would have to look at that. I don't know if Target is an international chain. But here in the United States of America, you don't have to go very far to find one. And there's almost a sense of comfort that I find because the layout is typically identical. And as kind of silly as it sounds, whenever I would get feelings of being homesick, whether out on the road or in when I lived in Chicago or when I lived in Los Angeles, I would go to a Target and just kind of meander around, because at least there is a familiarity and a sense of, I guess, a sense of comfort, which from a retail perspective, especially a corporate retail environment, they really nailed that, didn't they? Maybe that's just me, but Target feels a little bit like home. We didn't have, where I grew up, we didn't have a Walmart for a very long time. I was probably in my, maybe high school when they finally opened one in my hometown. And you better believe that was the talk of the town. So it was always Target, which would be the place to go get your necessities around the household. And so I didn't have, I guess, early memories regarding Walmart, which I think maybe is why Walmart has always been such a bizarre thing for me. We had one, it was a couple hours away growing up, and I remember being a kid and thinking like, oh, the price tags are neon green, which I don't think they do that anymore, but they used to. And in the last video I made, which was a channel member exclusive, I talked about my new favorite movie. And that movie is Where the Heart Is, starring Natalie Portman. You'll have to be a channel member to really get into the details of how I feel about that movie and why I would consider it my new favorite movie. But I will say that after watching and loving that movie, I went to a Walmart for the first time in a very long time over the weekend. And it was mind-blowing. I had so much fun. And the first thing, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm my allergies are still crazy. Walking in. So there's a couple things about Walmart. Maybe this is good advice for someone overseas watching this, or maybe someone who somehow has never been to a Walmart before. There are certain tips and tricks that can make the experience fruitful. Tip number one, I mean, especially this goes for if it's a 24-hour, go at like 2 a.m, maybe 3 a.m. The later the better, or depending on how late, the earlier the better. There's a crowd of people after hours at Walmart that are really unlike any other group of people I've had the pleasure of experiencing in life, and it makes me wonder, like, wow, I'm here right now. What do I need to get? What is everybody else getting? And it was funny because, we were walking in. I was with my girlfriend, and we had just watched Where the Heart Is, which is a movie about a young pregnant woman who delivers a baby while living in a Walmart. You gotta watch it. And my full breakdown and analysis is available on the members channel. If you'd like to watch, just click join. So the first thing I thought when we walked in, I was like, oh, I feel like we're in Where the Heart Is. And I got really excited because a big chunk of that movie takes place inside of a Walmart. And that was very exciting to me. I felt like I was on a movie set. And I told her, I said, I kind of feel almost too like I'm on tour, because that would be the only time I would really go to a Walmart. You'd be in the middle of nowhere, you have a day off, and for me, it was usually I forgot to bring enough socks, or I would need to get a towel or just kind of some necessity. And it was always fun because it was usually a group of people, and you would have your Walmart day, and kind of usually a fish out of water situation when you're with a bunch of musicians in the middle of nowhere. Same kind of goes for like truck stops. I remember getting extremely excited before I lived in Texas to go to Buc-ee's, which is, words can't describe, but the closest I've come, I described it to a friend from Nashville who was coming down to Texas for the first time. And I said, oh, you get to experience Buc-ee's. And they're like, huh? And I was like, it's kind of like Disneyland, but a truck stop. I've fallen in love with it. And so we're meandering about in Walmart, and just so many memories kind of came back. And I said, I used to, dabble in the psychedelics and come walk around Walmart with my friends. And it was the funniest thing that's ever happened in my life. And as I said it, we kind of turned the corner, and there was a group of like maybe 4 or 5 teenagers who clearly were under the influence of some sort of mind-altering substance. And they were just laughing hysterically. And I felt like a grandfather as I smiled upon them and had a chuckle to myself. Kind of thinking like, those were the days. And then I went and bought a pair of shorts. Another thing I noticed, actually, we were kind of perusing the clothing section, and I don't know, at least for me, kind of growing up, or at least my understanding, there seemed to be a stigma about wearing clothes at Walmart, and at least these days, I've got to say that maybe they've brought in some stylists or someone who has maybe a better idea of fashion when it comes to the clothes that they sell at Walmart. But I got to say, I found myself several times kind of like looking over at my girlfriend being like, I feel like I could pull this off. This is actually kind of awesome. A couple shirts and a couple, there were some shorts that were great, but the unfortunate thing I found is someone with a relatively small waist. I tend to be about a 30. Everything was 36 inches and above. So I think the size 30s got to the Walmart men's clothing section before me. But I was very impressed, actually, by their selection. I legitimately was kind of like looking at a couple of different pieces from their collection. I mean, this is actually pretty awesome. They carry Wrangler there. I didn't realize that. And Wrangler, you find that a lot. Something that's very prominent, at least in Central Texas, is there's a lot of Western wear warehouses, as they say, WEAR, warehouse. And you'll find really great, typically high quality Western wear, and that was a fashion statement that I had not really explored. I had a bit of a phase in high school, and the music scene that I was involved in, there was a moment where the traditional Western shirt became quite popular. But up north, I was in Michigan at the time, and though there was a lot of farmland and a lot of good old-fashioned country in my neck of the woods, the stylings were a bit different. It was more, you would see a lot of like Carhartt overalls, or the Carhartt jacket was very popular. Maybe a like the red plaid overcoat with like a gray hood, that kind of thing, and a lot of camo. Mossy oak camouflage was very, very popular. And I find down here in Texas there's an aesthetic that I quite like, and what I've found in expanding my wardrobe with Western wear, it is all designed to be highly functional. And I gotta say, when you're designing pants that are intended to be comfortable and functional while riding a horse, considerable amount of thought went into those designs, and they are incredibly comfortable. And ultimately, I discovered the greatest pants of all time, the Top Secret pants the Voldemort of pants because you're not supposed to talk about them, but here I am spilling the beans because that's I feel a duty to our viewers to be as real, particularly when it comes to the best pants ever made, Wrangler Ranchers. I know some of you knew that was coming. Unisex pants look great on people of all shapes, sizes, genders. Incredibly affordable, variety of colors. I found out about these and I thought, no way, Jose. And you can't judge a book by its cover in this sense, because if you get them on Amazon or from the official Wrangler page, the models wearing them typically are wearing them a bit loose, a bit baggy. You gotta really size down, and on the inseam, you really gotta size down. If I'm usually a 34-inch inseam. I think I go a 30 or a 29. They have weird in between sizes, which I like, so you can get a perfect kind of custom fit without having to go to a tailor, which I also recommend. But that can get a little pricey, so just kind of, throwing it out there. If you're looking to change up your style a little bit, check out the Wrangler Ranchers. I'm not endorsed by them, but I do appreciate those pants. That's kind of been a it's in life we go through kind of cycles of what we wear, and kind of like when I talked about in the shirt and the trip, a previous episode, the clothes we wear can kind of define us. And sometimes you go out on a limb and maybe you're not used to wearing hats. Maybe you're not a hat person, or maybe you found or bought or were gifted a jacket or a sweater that isn't quite your style. But what I find, this is why I like hanging out with stylists, because for the longest time, I would just wear like skinny black jeans and, I don't know, just like a plain white shirt, or I guess I didn't really even consider fashion until I kind of got thrown into the deep end of that world. But I always knew I had kind of like style icons, I guess you would say, that I would look up to. And I would see like a movie or something, and someone was dressed really cool. And, it was a bit of a process, I think, figuring out what brands are the right kind of fit, because certain brands fit differently. And then kind of combining things to make an outfit. And I think I was insecure about that for a long time. And then at a certain point, I just kind of thought like, well, I like this, and this is what I'm going to wear. And I don't know, sometimes there's something great about when you have like a new outfit, or maybe you find something thrifting, that is just completely unique. No one, they haven't manufactured it in 40 years, and you found it and it fits great, and it's just, it's a vibe. And then you pull it off, and people compliment you on it, and it's like, it feels good. It really feels good. I always try to I always notice, usually like in an airport, because there's just such a variety of people. I'm kind of that guy where, if I like something, or I see something that I think looks good on someone, I like to let them know. And it's like when the gentleman at Ralph's on Ventura complimented my looks, my outfit, and then proceeded to buy my groceries for me. It feels good. And I think those tiny little moments are more important than ever. Now, I had a weird thought actually over the weekend. I met someone new for the first time in quite a while. And there was kind of it's just embedded into my brain, growing up. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, thank you. Yes, please. And when meeting someone, shake their hand. And give them a nice greeting. A little how do you do? Pleasure to meet you. Hajime mamashite. But there's kind of, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've seen as kind of things open up and meeting new people, which that it just feels great to be meeting people again. And it was an interesting kind of moment, because now, we were kind of gauging each other, like, are we gonna shake hands, or are we gonna, be distanced, and kind of figuring that out. But I'm finding I'm adopting the Japanese bow a lot more. And they really nailed that. They've been doing that for, centuries. And it makes a heck of a lot of sense, especially in a post-pandemic world. But it was pleasant. And, there was so many things kind of going through my head, Usually when I meet someone new, I'll like say their name several times in my head so I can remember it, because there's nothing worse than you just meet someone and you immediately forget their name. And that's something probably over the past 5 years I've really, really tried to get better at. It's tough when you're meeting a lot of people, but typically the name game kind of association kind of works for me. Or really, what I did yesterday, I just thought I'll associate the name with a character in a movie with that name, and now I'll never forget their name. So that's kind of cool. That's one of those things, I don't know, somewhere along the line, I made that decision. I was like, I gotta really focus on remembering people's names right away. Because that's another thing, isn't it? Doesn't that feel good when you just met someone, maybe you're in a small group of people at a dinner or something, and they address you, they just met you, but they address you by your first name. And then you have that little thing in the back of your head. You're like, oh God, I can't remember theirs. Or at least I do. I get a little anxious and paranoid when that happens. So to mitigate that, I've implemented kind of the name game association deal. And that's been now that I find myself kind of meeting people again after a year of borderline solitude, and most of my talking has been talking into a camera and a microphone. It's good. It feels day by day, the humanity seems to be coming back. And I can't lie, that it was really kind of starting to... The physical interaction with people, I think if anything, throughout this whole lockdown situation, it was kind of a global human experiment about, if FaceTime and Zoom calls could cut it, and the answer to that is capital no. We can get by with that, but nothing's going to replace a hug and a handshake. And I look forward to the day when there doesn't have to be like an apprehension about that. Who knows? Maybe that's just the way it is now, but we'll see. I wanted to ask, I did a bit of Googling. None of my Googling on this helped, and I'm hoping maybe someone in here has some sort of experience with botany, and maybe in the comments can help me out. Out of the blue, out of nowhere, my baby Monstera, I believe it's Monstera deliciosa, is the genus of plant. She was growing great. Almost a year old, so maybe only 5 inches of growth, 6 inches. And I had a couple of new leaves kind of starting to, they were still swirled, but they were about to open up. And out of nowhere, it's just droopy like crazy. I've been watering it. I've been feeding it some food, Miracle Grow. And it says, 3-4 inches of keeping the soil damp. And I even do the little love spray, and it's not in direct sunlight. As far as I can tell, I'm doing everything that's been recommended, but my poor plant, that's like my main one that I love. And it's just drooping and looking really, really sad. So I'm hoping maybe someone here has some experience with the Monsteras in particular, because they are so cool. They're like I believe they're also referred to as the Swiss cheese plants. And they have little holes once they get to, I believe, about 3 years old, and the individual leaves start to... they have these very cool patterns, designs. Oh. We're joined here by the cats, who are crunching and munching away on their kibbles and bits. Well, it's not kibbles and bits. I believe that's dog food. Whatever the Purina version of kibbles and bits for cats is. So if you can hear that. See, maybe that's not picking up on this microphone, but I'd be willing to bet you could probably hear that. So I wanted to talk also today about one of my favorite artists, musical artists, I would say actually visual multimedia artists, who I don't think gets enough I don't think he's talked about enough, but the people who listen to him know about him. All flood him with adoration because it's well deserved. And he's an Australian artist named Donny Benet. And I found out about Donny Benet because kind of through the grapevine, friends of friends introduced me to Kieran J. Callanan, who is also an amazing artist. And I mean, so many of my favorite musicians are Australians. I don't know what's going on. Maybe there's something in the water over there. But incredible people, incredible artistry. And I had someone had told me that I should check out Donnie's music. Donnie had collaborated and I believe performed with Kieran, I believe on tour, and they're like, yeah, you gotta check this out. The first song I heard and video I saw was for Konnichiwa, which will be my recommendation for the week, as well as his new album, which came out recently, 2020. But I think the reason it speaks to me so much, it's because, you know, he's so authentically him, and has, I think, reached a level of self-awareness in the music, the imagery, the videos, that I strive for. And there's a level of I guess, purity, you would say, in every element. I've seen videos of his studio, and he does these amazing kind of like walkthroughs on how to play like the bass line to a certain song. He's a phenomenal musician, but I wouldn't say primarily, but I think maybe is most well known for his bass guitar skills, which, you know, I've been playing for a very long time, but he's just on a completely different level. And I think if you enjoy kind of the vibe of what I do, and you're maybe looking for something kind of in the same vein, but also uniquely its own thing, I can't sing the praises enough for Donnie Benet. And what a collection of synthesizers and drum machines he has. There's a video out there, and he kind of explains, he goes piece by piece, and it is like it's like a museum of the best of the best. Because, you know, with any sort of musical technology, there's always going to be there's going to be hits and misses, right? And throughout those hits and misses, you know, there's just like gems. And he happens to have collected over the years all of the gems. And so, because it's really easy these days to get some really high quality samples of, especially like drum machines, and the Linn drum, which is kind of like I always associate the Linn drum with Prince, but a lot of that kind of like early 80s, mid 80s, those sounds that were just used on massive records. You know, the original ones that they use, there's only a few hundred of them that even exist, and he has one of the original, like, real deal Linn drums. And there's just something about the real deal. I have quite a bit of experience with the original 808 analog drum machine, because one of my good friends lent me one for like a year, and I played with that thing like crazy. But the Linn drum's a completely different animal. When I was in, the first time I actually saw one, like in real life, you know, there's a few hundred of these things that I believe were made, and I'm sure along the way some got lost or broken. But I was at a studio in Burbank, California, working with an amazing producer who's in the dance world, Vaughn Oliver of the The Project Oliver, if you haven't heard that, is amazing as well if you like electronic music. But he actually was the person who introduced me to Kieran, who I was talking about earlier. He was in town at the time. We were working on a mix, but he was in the other studio, or one of the other rooms in the studio. And yeah, he was in from Australia, and got to meet him for the first time there. And kind of like after, we were just kind of crossing paths. And afterwards, my buddy was like, "You have got to watch this music video right now." And it was for SAD. One of my favorite music videos of all time. And songs. It's oh my gosh. That kind of opened new doors for me, finding out about the Kieran Callahan stuff and the Donny Benet stuff. I believe on the same day. But the studio he was working in was another friend of a friend, and they shared a space with the group Chromeo, which I'm sure you've probably heard of. Their song "Needy Girl" was massive a couple years ago. Maybe I was just out of high school when that came out. But they've continued to do just amazing work. And they have a bit of a, I guess you would say, museum of just amazing gear, and they're just two genius human beings who know what to do with it. Because there's a lot of people who just kind of collect it and it sits there and it's like, man, what I could do with a Lindrum. But when you see someone, like someone that's just producing and creating incredible artwork with it, it's like, thank the good Lord up above that this machine from almost 40 years ago almost, made its way, in the hands of someone who appreciates it. And that's always a good feeling. But I remember just looking around the room and just being like, wow, look at that. Like, there's just so much cool stuff. And I don't know, call me crazy, call me a purist. Many would call me a lot of bad words. But I don't know, there's kind of a pretentiousness, I guess you would say. And if you feel as though something like this concept is pretentious, then all good, God bless you. I am under the impression, and I guess philosophy, there's something different when you're using the actual, I guess this goes for hardware. And for those watching who maybe don't produce music, or they haven't recorded or aren't familiar with the process of recording, so much stuff now is just samples. I mean, any sort of recording software is going to come with kind of like preset built-in sounds that you can just use right from your computer. So the idea of hardware is using external instruments, synthesizers, drum machines, or even, just recording on a guitar. You're plugging something in, and then with your hands, you're physically getting it to make the sounds that you're looking to get to complete your song. And sometimes that's a starting point. Sometimes that's, the cherry on top kind of thing. And I've gone through waves in my life of like, I'm just going to do everything in the box, on the computer. And some producers, I mean, one of my favorite producers ever, Yasutaka Nakata, who's a Japanese producer who I was so lucky to meet in Tokyo once. It was kind of like meeting Splinter from Ninja Turtles. It was a little bit like that. And that was an interesting one because we were in one of these kind of like super cool, hard to get into Tokyo clubs. And my friend who I was with, who's an artist manager here in the States and also over in Japan. And she said, hey, would you like to meet Nakata-san? And, I was kind of like, ooh, I would love to, but I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know what the vibe is. I don't want to look like an idiot, and I don't want to slip up on my Japanese. But it was kind of it was a really cool kind of situation. And he was going to be doing a set later the evening, and I was like, yeah, I would love to. And so I was kind of taken into this back VIP lounge, and it was like a scene from The Matrix, and there was, the fog machines are going, and it's this kind of big empty room, very dark, and incredibly cinematic moment. And through the fog, there's just one man who just, looks like a superhero, and he's just sitting there alone, it was just wow, people like this exist. And he was very nice. He was very cool, and his set was amazing. And that was kind of a check off the bucket list of okay, cool, I got to meet one of my favorite producers ever. But the reason I bring him up is the rumor is he almost exclusively records in the box, and there's some famous photographs of him actually in his studio, and it's just this giant white room with nothing in it, and a laptop and a keyboard, and that's it. And so I went through a bit of a phase a couple years ago when I was really, I really like the stuff that he's done with Perfume, and of course the Kyari Pami Pami. Everything she's done I've loved, and she's a sweetheart too, a very, very, very nice person. So I kind of went through a time where I was highly influenced by kind of that idea of not worrying about all the hardware, but also at the time I didn't have any money and I didn't have any gear, so I was kind of working with what I had. But I learned a lot from that. Because there's everywhere you go, and people produce music or write music, create music in wildly different ways, and kind of within that that realm that I was introduced to, and was lucky enough to, be included and kind of a part of. Working on an album in Tokyo, spending, a month there, it transformed the way I looked at music production, that's for sure. And I miss my friends over there. I can't wait to go back. It seems like it's gonna be a little more time. Some really cool people who I would love to just, give them a hug. But I'm sure a lot of people probably feel that way at this point. April, it's almost May. Can you believe that? That's month 5, y'all. June, that's halfway, baby. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. The time is just flying by. And I don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm sure I've been saying it a lot. I apologize if I'm a broken record there, but I don't know. I'm finding recently, I really don't know why. I don't think anything sparked this, but I'm doing my best to really appreciate every moment and appreciate every day and appreciate those the moments of novelty, because it seems like it's having a collective, profound, positive change in my life. And I think it's a bit of a strange thing. I'm sure it might sound dumb to some people, but I'm still figuring out like why I was so angry and jealous for so long. And I don't know, somewhere along the line it just went away. But I guess, I mean, when you go through so many just like earth-shattering, life-changing, unforeseen roadblocks or forks in the road, you know, maybe that's like the silver lining of like living through those kinds of things, those challenges. And you know, I was kind of thinking about this this morning. I had crazy nightmares last night. And very often I'll have the nightmare of my teeth falling out. And I've had that for most of my adult life. Every once in a while I'll have the teeth dream. And I mean, it's so unsettling and so uncomfortable. And yeah, I had one of those last night. Full-blown nightmare. I haven't had a nightmare in a long time. And I was deteriorating. I don't know if you've seen the movie Seven, but the man in the movie who his deadly sin that he's guilty of is sloth. I won't give anything away, because if you haven't seen Seven, starring Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow, that's one of my favorite movies. You should really watch it. It's a little disturbing. I you know, heads up. But beautifully done movie. Anyway, so if you've seen it and you know the sloth scene that I'm talking about, I was like that. You know, I was like almost deteriorating in this nightmare, and my teeth had fallen out, or they were actively falling out. And I was being pursued like by a grim reaper. And you know, it was frightening. It woke me up, and I'm glad it did. But you know, after you have a nightmare, you know, there's that moment after you wake up and you're just like, oh, glad that wasn't real. But the remnants of that, you know, kind of stuck around for a little bit as I was coming to my senses and waking up for the day today. And it just, yeah, it made me, you know, just grateful to be healthy and, you know, have a healthy family and healthy friends, and you know, healthy in my relationships all around. You know, and that got me thinking about, like, man, that's privilege. Because especially at 34 years old, you know, and I've lost friends recently too, and it never gets any easier. But our time is limited here. And I don't know, just to think about all the people before us who led all of us to this moment. We're very lucky, and I kind of, I guess, realized like there's been a lot of privileges in my life for sure. Also a lot of things that sucked that I had to, figure out how to not let them affect my life negatively anymore. But the true privilege, I think that I was maybe coming to an understanding of this morning was like, man, if you've got a healthy family and healthy friends, that's something to be thankful for and grateful for. And, cheeseball moment here in today's episode, but I think it's good to like meditate on that. If you're into meditation, some people call it prayer, some people call it, getting in the zone. I don't know, but I think there's a lot of there's a lot of like maybe that type of meditation or prayer that happens when you need something, right? Or you don't want something to happen, or something happens and you're praying for it to be remedied, even if it's just asking for like the strength to make it through this, today. But like anything in the universe, there's yin and yang, and that harmony and that balance is, seems to be how the universe works. What goes up must come down. And I kind of, that's something I've been thinking about, and I guess praying about, meditating on, is just appreciation. And that appreciation goes for everyone watching this too. Even if you think I'm full of it, and you don't like me for whatever reason, which I understand. I've said some really, really dumb things, and I wish I hadn't said, there's plenty of things I wish I hadn't said or done, or, and some of those things, I get it when you're done with someone or done with an idea or something, it's just like, yeah, that's it. Like, I'm done with that. And I get it. I suppose maybe I've been that way with people on the internet who make videos and put them online, that kind of thing. Well, but yeah, that's something I kind of want to maybe dive into in the future. Because it's kind of, it's one of those things like over the years, especially when I was just trying to like get attention for the things that I was working on, there's a whole list of people I feel like I probably owe an apology to. Namely, Melanie Martinez. Melanie, if somehow you see this, I truly apologize big time for giving you a hard time. To me, it was giving your fans a hard time because they were so rabid, and I just thought, oh, all I have to do is like, say dumb stuff on Twitter, and then they'll pay attention to what this artist that I'm working with, and it's, it was dumb. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. And we've met before, actually, very briefly. It was at Anthem, and we had the same producer at that time. It was very, very brief, many, many moons ago. But yeah, that's been weighing on me a little bit. And yeah, hopefully at some point we'll be able to talk, and hopefully I'll be able to kind of explain in detail the whys of, I was mean. And I excuse that meanness with like, oh, it's silly. It's just on Twitter. It's not real. I told myself that for years. Oh, it's on Twitter. It's not real. It's on the internet. The internet's not real. And yeah, then like in the Wizard of Oz, when the house falls on, the witch, that's what it feels like, at least. And it's like, oh, the things I say actually do affect people. I was a dumb kid. But I am trying. So yeah, hopefully, I'm hoping to, that's not the point of doing these videos. It just kind of popped in my mind because I've been thinking about it, but, I hope to be able to kind of, remedy, especially the ones that I pacified, people I truly didn't know. And, it was just something that I used to do because it worked, unfortunately. Like, if I can activate a fan base, and in Melanie's case, it was just like, well, she seems to have like the most active fans, especially, at that time. It was just like, wow, I can get a lot of, attention from this. It was like, and now looking back to be like, wow, that was a part of like our marketing strategy. Like, I don't know. I'm just, makes me feel weird now. And I can see why at the time people were like, what do you like? That is such a lame move. And there's no excuse for it, but I definitely feel like, well, I felt like I had nothing to lose, and, I wasn't thinking about anyone's feelings, and the last person's feelings I was thinking about were my own. I was just hiding, and I don't want to hide anymore because it feels good to talk. It's been great talking to everyone in the membership community. And it's really the first time in my life that I've used like the internet the way I guess it was intended, because my whole thing was always just like breaking the rules and just pretending to be, this like, super creative recluse. But it's like, no, I'm just a person, and I love the community that we have here. That's constantly growing. Got a bunch of new members who have joined. Huge thank you. It means a ton. And just to see that grow and all these new videos, it's good. And just know that even though admittedly, it's still a little bit uncomfortable for me to say things like that, but But it feels good to say that, because as I'm working through all of my insecurities and trying to, plow through these mental barriers that, for whatever reason, have been there, the growth that I'm finding is by, or I guess the strongest and most rich amount of growth that I've personally been feeling is by being appreciative. And so, if you've made it this far into the video, that's over an hour of me just kind of like yapping on and on. Well, thank you. And I appreciate it very much. And I think that'll do it for today. Check out the movie Seven if you haven't seen it. Check out Donnie Benet. Konnichiwa is a great starting point. Working out's amazing. Just go down that rabbit hole. I guarantee it'll bring a smile to your face. Yeah, that's about it. If you would like to become a member, click join. If you would like to subscribe, hit the notification bell so when I release these, you get an alert. And yeah, that's going to do it for today. Members, we'll see Friday, same time, same place. And everyone else, we will see you next week. Peace and love.